Welcome back to Cambridge House Live. I'm Vanessa Collette, and we're here with Greg McCoach. He's the president, CEO, and editor of The Mining Speculator, and you also own Amerigold.com. It's great to see you, Greg.
You too, Vanessa. Glad to be here.
Now, Greg, what do you think the sentiment is right now? Is it cautious optimism or cautious bullishness? What are you seeing?
I think we'd all like to be bullish, but I think after we've had our heads handed to us the last several years, I think we're all trying to be more cautiously optimistic. It feels like there's changes coming, and welcome changes for us in this sector anyway. And I would say that I probably, if you were to speak with me privately, I'd probably say I'm bullish now. I'm going bullish again. Yeah. But a lot of us don't want to jinx that, so we're just remaining cautiously optimistic.
Right. Now, this time last year, you were saying that you believe the U.S. wasn't going to be able to end QE. A lot of people believe that, myself included. So officially, they seem to have ended it. What's your take there? Yeah,
I think a lot of what you're hearing from the Federal Reserve or central banks around the world, you really have to take it all with a grain of salt, right? There's a lot of smoke and mirrors. There's a lot of deception and subterfuge and all this stuff. I was of the opinion that when they were saying they were doing 80 billion a month of QE, I actually believe they were doing 200 billion a month, right? Okay. So when they said they were stopping QE, what they were probably stopping was the 80 billion a month, but they're still doing this other amount, which is very hard to verify. But that's my take on it. Right. Given the circumstances, there's no way that they can get out of the jam they've created for themselves. So QE is the last straw, the last thing they can do to try to keep the whole shenanigan going.
Well, if you look at a chart of the velocity of money, you see, the money supply has had a sharp drop off. Is that because they've, been tapering and sort of
I think part of the velocity of money change is that the wealthy people in America, let's say, the retirees that have saved $1 million during their lifetimes, they were putting it in T-bills at 5% and making a nice return, right? And so they were having a nice lifestyle. They were able to spend money, right? Well, all of a sudden, they can't make that 5% yield anymore. So they're getting worried, right? How am I going to do this? So I think you saw a pullback this year in the retail holiday sales. I think they were off 15-16% from last year. Right. So I think that fear index, right? How do I have my good lifestyle? I think people are worried about that. Right. And that's decreasing the velocity of money.
Now, how close do you think we are to, a financial collapse? I mean, the U.S. has been saying that they're going to be raising rates later this year. A lot of people are skeptical about that. So do you think we're still on the edge of a major collapse right now?
A lot of us, I've been of that opinion that this is coming. There's no way to avoid it, but trying to get the timing on this is ridiculous. Yeah. I'm usually too early with stuff like this. In my career, with my prognostications, I tend to, as soon as I sense something, I tend to get it out there, and it's a little too early, right? The empire of the U.S. will continue to crumble. Can they get away with it another year, 2 years? It could go 4 years, who knows? It's just too difficult to say. But I do think that there's a lot of alarming evidence.
Well, the Swiss bank, I mean, what did you think of the Swiss?
They're just saying enough is enough with this insanity, right? I mean, that sounds like game over, right? And then you take some of the other information, like where the G20 and the recent Congress in the United States with the last-minute bill that kept Congress going for another year so they're not bankrupt. They slipped in this little extra deal that protects the banks against derivative liability, right? So
how do you think they're able to always sneak in these little...
Again, we need to all look ourselves in the mirror and ask ourselves, why are we willing to tolerate this? Well, we don't want to get involved. We don't want to make waves. We don't want to stick our head out of the foxhole, right? But someone's going to have to start doing this, challenging this stuff, because we're just letting it go without any opposition. And we're going to pay a bad price for that, I think. So I maintain that there's a lot of glaring evidence that suggests that, look, the yen is in desperation mode. Euroland looks like it's now going to collapse.
They're going to start QE, very soon.
Yeah, I mean, and the United States gets the cleanest shirt and the dirty laundry, right? It's just the way it is. But that doesn't mean America is going to survive. It just means they may survive a little bit longer. Once this thing goes, it's a global event. Everyone will be affected. And unfortunately, I think when history shows that when governments, central banks, and their politicians get in these conditions, they go to the war card, right? And we see the United States poking sharp sticks in the eyes of the Russians and the Chinese. Well,
right. Do you feel World War III is imminent?
You know, you hate to say things like that. It's such a negative thing. There's potential for that, though. You can't bury your head in the sand when you see what we're doing to Russia and this triangle, this wicked triangle between Russia, China, and America. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's scary.
Yeah, it is. And there's a lot of fear out there. We were saying a lot of, right before the interview, a lot of investors, you know, who might be in their retirement age, they're facing a lot of fear. So what would you recommend for them to do, you know, at this point?
Well, this is one, and I wrote an article last month, how to invest in volatile times, in the absolute absurdities we now find ourselves. Absurdities because you can't trust anything, right? You can't make a logical, intelligent investment decision based on the information that's out there because it's all smoke and mirrors and deception, right? So I maintain that during volatile times like this, when things get very uncertain, you got to stay with physical gold and silver, the quality. You got to emphasize quality mining shares, right? There's a lot of these companies, but you know, why take risk when you can invest in companies that have the assets already in the ground and they're at fire sale prices?
Right.
So invest in that kind of quality. Collectibles are always good in this environment, right? You know, classic cars, rare stamps, rare artwork. You got to learn how to buy it right. You can't overpay. But those kind of things are, I think, some of the things.
Retain their value.
Retain their value, help people protect what they've worked so hard in their lives to save.
Absolutely. Well, Greg, it was a pleasure having you on with us again today.
Always a pleasure to be here, Vanessa. Thank you.